Hi everyone, my name is BJ the Blogger, and I'm here to talk to you guys about planning a at-home natural birth. And I really wanted to talk to you guys about, why I decided I wanted to have a home birth and what the entire planning process has kind of looked like. As you can see, I am very much pregnant right now. So right now I'm 35 weeks pregnant, and I've been planning a home birth since I was about 17 weeks pregnant. So this is what happened. So I was originally planning on having a birth at the hospital. But when me and my boyfriend went to do like the hospital visit, so you'll go on hospital visits in the beginning and just to kind of like vet out the hospitals and figure out which hospital like you like the best. We were going to hospitals, and I already in my mind knew that I wanted to have a natural birth. Whether I was having that at the hospital or a birth center or wherever, I knew that I wanted to have the baby naturally. So going to the hospitals, you don't find a ton of hospitals that are very natural birth friendly. They don't even really use very good language around it. Whenever we would talk to people, they would just kind of be like, well, you can plan for a natural birth, or good luck, or, they would just kind of say weird things. And that was a little bit frustrating. And also, I had in my head a way that I wanted my birth to be. I didn't want to have to lay on my back. And the way their beds are kind of set up, just kind of, I don't know. I didn't want to have a baby on my back, and I knew that I didn't want to have to wear the gown. And not all hospitals have tubs for you to birth in. I know one hospital that we found that did have a birthing tub, they only had one room that had a birthing tub, so I would just have to hope that I was the only person in labor that day, and that I was the first one to get to the tub. Also, they only had three of the thing that they use to monitor the baby. They only had three of them that were wireless, so that meant that I would be hooked up to a machine, and I didn't want to labor that way either. Mind you, okay, just I guess fair warning. This is my first birth though, so I've never experienced birth before. But I know in my mind what I want my birth to kind of look like. So I didn't want to be hooked up to any machines. And also they said that when you get to the hospital, they check your fluids, and if you are dehydrated, they're going to give you an IV. I didn't want an IV, because maybe I'm just a little paranoid, but I don't know what the hell they're putting inside of that thing. They can tell me it's water, and it can be whatever the hell they want it to be. So, that was the other thing I didn't like. And I was starting to feel like I was starting to get frustrated before the process even began, because I was feeling like, oh, okay, so I'm going to be that mom that comes in and is difficult, that they don't want to help, and that are getting on the nurse's nerve. And I just didn't want to be that mom that, is fighting with the nurses because they're trying to do their job, but I want my birth to look differently. So that was one thing. When we went on hospital visits, I just didn't feel comfortable. And the second thing was the idea of having to stop my labor process in the middle. So basically you're laboring, and then you're transported to the hospital. You're not, because you're changing environments, that can spike your adrenaline and stall your labor. And that was something that I really didn't want to do either, because I was going to labor mainly at home. So what in my head, I wanted to labor at home until I got, pretty much almost to the point of transitioning, and then go to the hospital. But I would hate for, me to get that far just for me to get to the hospital and, my labor stall. So that was the other thing that kind of, made me not want to have a baby at the hospital. And the last thing was, I had a really great gynecologist that I loved, and basically she told me she wasn't going to birth my baby. She said it was going to be the other gynecologist that would be the one that would birth my baby, and I did not trust the other gynecologist because we had a little bit of a fiasco with my IUD, and I was, trying to explain to her that I was feeling pain, and she tried to make it seem like it was in my head. And so I didn't like that, just because there's already a lot of stigma around Black women not being listened to when it comes to medical professionals. So I didn't want to have to deal with that in something so important as me giving birth. And, something that had to do with my body before, with my IUD, I tried to tell you something was going on and you weren't listening. So I knew I didn't want that person to be the person that birthed my baby. So those were all of the reasons why I ended up deciding to have a home birth. My gynecologist recommended that we get a doula because it was our first child. So we found a doula. Her name's Sherry. She's freaking amazing. And so we got our doula, Sherry. And Sherry's been down for us to do whatever since the beginning. But then once we ultimately decided we wanted, also we did try birthing centers, but child, them things are expensive. Let me tell you, we'll get to pay later. But yeah, we tried birthing centers. They're really expensive. So we just were like, we'll just have a baby at home. And so basically we told Sherry, look, we're looking for a midwife. And she gave us some recommendations, and we found our midwife, and her name is Ashley. So that kind of gets to where we were, where we officially were like, all right, we got our midwife, we got our doula, we're having a baby at home. And that was at 20 weeks. So, all right. So in terms of like preparing for at-home birth, so there is a lot of preparation that needs to happen because you have the baby at a hospital. I mean, outside of you going and getting your car seat checked and you like filling out paperwork ahead of time, you really don't see anybody until you're ready to have, like, until you're in labor. I mean, you see your gynecologist, but in terms of like the actual hospital, there's not a whole lot of preparation that needs to be made. But for home births, there is a little bit more preparation. So we got our midwife. So we had to interview and hire midwives. Well, we only interviewed one. But we are very confident that Ashley knows what she's doing. But we only ended up interviewing one. I would recommend interviewing, multiple if you feel like you need to. We did reach out to a lot of them, but we specifically wanted a Black midwife, and there just really aren't a lot of Black midwives inside of Dallas. You'd be surprised. So when we found Ashley, we were very, very happy about that. So you have to hire a midwife, and I don't think you need a doula, but I think midwives are most of the time going to recommend you get a doula. So we hired our doula and we hired Ashley. So in terms of cost, so first of all, let's talk about cost if you have the baby at a hospital, because I think we have to kind of take that into consideration too. I did not realize how expensive it is to have a baby until my behind got pregnant. So, when you're birthing a baby, you're not just paying your gyno. You're paying for your appointments at your gynecologist, which, depending on what type of insurance you have, it may be covered, it may not be covered. Your sonograms, which I learned your sonograms aren't free. You have to pay for your sonograms. At least under my insurance, I have to pay for all of my sonograms out of pocket. So there's that. And then in addition to that, so you have to pay the person that is birthing your child. So you have to pay the gynecologist that's birthing your baby. So when we found that out, because we thought we were paying for the entire birth at our gynecologist office, so they like break it down in payments. At least this is my experience. They broke it down in payments, like a payment plan, in order for you to be fully paid up by the time you got to like 32 weeks or something like that. The total cost ended up being about, I want to say $2,000, something like that, to pay our gynecologist, right? So we're assuming your appointments are free, but your sonograms aren't free. So let's say you need to get 3 or 4 sonograms. So that's going to be about like $500. And then you have to pay your gynecologist, which we'll just, for namesake, say it's about $2,000. So this is coming out of your pocket. I mean, I have an HSA account, but your HSA account's still coming out of your pocket, right? So that's $2,500 right there. Then you have to pay the hospital. So I thought when you pay your gynecologist, we squared away, buddy. We don't got to pay. We good. No. Then you have to pay the hospital, which nobody, for some reason, could tell me how much money it would cost for me to pay the hospital. I think she said if I ended up with a vaginal birth, it would be maybe like $1,800 or something like that. I can't remember. But it'd be more expensive if I got a C-section, and it would be more expensive if I got an epidural. And it also would depend on what type of room I got at a hospital, if I got a luxury suite or whatever. So nobody could really tell me what my bill would come up to be at the hospital. So let's just assume, I don't know. Let's assume it's going to be $2,500. So my deductible was $5,000. So ultimately, no matter what, I would not end up spending more than $5,000 to have the baby. But when I kind of thought back, I was like, well, if I'm going to be coming out of pocket $5,000 no matter what, I think I would rather spend the money in a way that I have full control over what's going on, and I'm able to pick out the person that's birthing my baby. Because that's the other thing. Like, if your gynecologist is not available, then they're just going to give you whoever is on call. Like, it's not like the situation with me and Ashley where, Ashley is watching me very closely, and she knows like when my baby is pretty much expected to come. So when I go into labor, she's got her bags together and she's ready, but it's not, there's not a much of a fallback plan unless, she has unless you have a midwife that is very busy that month, and there's still that chance that she would have 2 births in the same day. But, that's why you interview multiple midwives, to make sure that you're getting a midwife that's not going to be super busy. So yeah, like, I figure if I'm going to be spending all this bread, I would rather have more control over what's going on. So we actually got a deal with Ashley. Ashley, because we did not get with her until we were 20 weeks, she's only making us pay for the birth, which we're going to end up coming out of pocket $3,500 for our midwife, hiring our midwife, and our doula costs $700. Now, granted, this may be different for different people. I don't know if Ashley, if you don't put your prices up and people are talking, don't blame me. Don't get mad at me, but we were able to negotiate. Our price with Ashley. So ultimately, I'm spending $4,200 out of pocket for a birth that I have full control over. The only, the only thing with home births is there's always the possibility that you do have to go to the hospital under an emergency situation. And, that's something that you have to have a conversation with your midwife about, because y'all gotta figure out what y'all gonna do about the money. I mean, that's something that you have to have a conversation with your midwife about. Me and Ashley, we've pretty much come to the conclusion that if she doesn't birth my baby, then I'm gonna pay. We're gonna continue. She's gonna continue to keep the money, but she would refund some of our money back if we do go to the hospital. Because if you go to the hospital and you're supposed to have, and you paid for a home birth, then you still have to pay the hospital. So that's why it's really important that, if you want to have a home birth, that you're certain about it, because if you start screaming you want to go to the hospital, then that gets really expensive. Then it ends up being about the same amount of money as you would have spent if you would have just went to the hospital in the first place. But, we're going to assume everybody is healthy and everybody's going to have a birth the way that they're supposed to. And also, when you have a birth at home, there is a least likely chance that you're going to have a C-section. In situations, and I'm not just making this up, but a lot of times there are situations that you're in a hospital and they pretty much default you into having a C-section, because when there's other things that they can do in order to prevent you from having a C-section, but they will just have you do a C-section if things start to get difficult. Whereas if you're at home, then you have people that are being more patient with you and are being more patient with your body and more patient with your baby. It reduces the likelihood of you needing to have a C-section. Having your baby at home is just as safe as having a baby at the hospital. It's just as safe. Sometimes safer. And when I talked to my gynecologist, which the one that I loved, she was actually a midwife before she became a gynecologist. And she told me that the C-section rates at the hospital is pretty much like 50-50. Like, you can go in the hospital and there's a 50% chance you're having your baby vaginally, 50% chance you're having a C-section. And I am 100% certain I do not want a C-section for personal reasons. So, that's the first thing. That's the money portion. So we end up spending about $4,200 for the home birth, and that was paid over the course of the pregnancy. So it wasn't like I just came out of pocket all at once. We did payment plans with Ashley and our doula. I don't know if that's average. I know I was going to be spending that amount of money anyway, and Ashley's reporting all of it to my insurance company, so it's going to go towards my deductible. So, I mean, to me, it's a win-win. And when we went and visited birth centers, they were trying to charge us like $7,000, $8,000 for a home birth experience. And it's like, well, why don't I just have the baby at my own house? Why I need to have it here? It looks just like a room in here. Like, the birthing center looks just like a room. The only difference is that you go to them versus when I go into labor, they gonna come to me. Why wouldn't I want to just have a baby at my own house? Like, I don't gotta go nowhere. Y'all come to me, all I gotta do is call you and be like, hey, yo, I'm in labor and y'all coming over here. And all this stuff is already here. So, anyways. Okay, so in terms of like what does the care look like when you have a home birth? So basically, I see Ashley just as much as I was seeing my gynecologist, and that was, I had an appointment every 4 weeks. So I would see her, I would see my gynecologist, before I decided to have a home birth, I would see my gynecologist every 4 weeks. When I hired Ashley, I started to see her every 4 weeks. It increased to every 2 weeks when we got to 32 weeks. So we've had a 32-week appointment, 34-week appointment. We're going to have an appointment at 35 weeks, but that's just because I'm having my own personal stuff going on. And then we have our 36-week appointment. And then when we get to 36 weeks, we're going to see her every week until the baby gets here. So the care is basically the same. Everything is pretty much the same. I mean, the difference is, though, when I have my appointments with Ashley, they're a lot more personal than the appointments I have with my gynecologist. So when I would see my gyno, they would, weigh me, take my vitals, whatever. Like, it would be like a nurse that would come and do that. And then my gynecologist would come in and she'd be like, all right, so what's going on? Anything change? Nope. All right, see you in a month. Like, that's literally what my appointments were like. Where when I have my appointments with Ashley, they're a lot more personal. She uses the appointments to educate us on different things. And we're having like real conversations. Like, our appointments are maybe like an hour and a half. Where like when I would go to the gynecologist, I was in and out. Like, I would be in there for maybe like 30 minutes. I mean, outside of the wait, like besides, me waiting for me to have my appointment. Like, the actual appointment was maybe like 30 minutes long. So, and I have my appointments with Ashley here. So I don't even got to travel. I don't even got to go anywhere. So that's another really cool part about it. So, yeah, in terms of care, everything else is the same. She, anytime she sees something that's weird, she'll prescribe me medicine and I would go pick it up just as if I was at a doctor's office. She's only had to do one vaginal exam, and that was because I was thinking that I was starting to dilate, and I was right. I actually am dilating right now. So yeah, she's only done one vaginal exam, which, I mean, it was the same exact thing as when I go to the gynecologist. They put the little speculum and pop you open and all that good stuff. So yeah, the care has been pretty much the same, the exact same as when I go to the gynecologist. Now with my doula, our relationship is a little bit different. She provides me with more like spiritual and mental, preparation for the baby. She gives me holistic solutions to things going on with my body. And, she's really teaching me and my boyfriend the things that we need to be doing right now in order to prepare for, our daughter to enter, this world. So our doula, oh God, I recommend everybody get a doula, because if y'all's doula is as good as my doula, then you need a doula. My doula is phenomenal. So the other thing that we've had to do in preparation is figure out what supplies that we need. So Ashley is providing our tub, but we have to provide everything else. So additional towels, shower curtain liners in case we have the baby on the bed. We have to have the blankets for the baby for when she, arrives, a hat, a thermometer for me and the baby. But Ashley provided a whole list of stuff that we needed. I think in terms of how much money we spent on the supplies, I think we spent maybe like $65, $70. And that's also because we had to get like pad sickles. And that's for postpartum. So yeah, I think we spent maybe like $65, $70 or whatever on that stuff. The like home birthing stuff. So what happens now is, so now I'm 35 weeks. So next week we have our 36-week appointment, and that's when the entire birth team is going to be here. So that's when my doula is going to be here, my midwife assistant, me, my boyfriend, and like, let's say you decided to have the baby at home, and you were going to have like your mama, your auntie, your cousin, whoever there. And that's the other thing about birthing at home. You could have whoever you want in the house. It don't, like, you have complete control over what your birth looks like. But yeah, so If they were going to be there, then it'd probably be a good idea for them to be there too, so they could be on the same page about what's going on. So all the entire birth team is going to get together next Wednesday and kind of talk about like what the birth is going to look like. I know Sherry encouraged us for us to have a birth plan, so we put a birth plan together, which is do you want to do delayed cord clamping for your placenta? Which Ashley, she's like, I recommend that anyway. That's the other thing. I asked the hospital when I was on the hospital tours, I'm like, do you guys do delayed cord clamping? She was like, oh, well, we delay it just a few seconds because that's as much time as you need for the placenta to stop pulsating. Like, y'all trying to rush this, and I don't appreciate it. So yeah. So like, do you want delayed cord clamping? Do you want it to be dark in here? Do you want to play music? What are the essential oils that you want going? Like that's like the level of detail that you get into how you want your birth to look like. And so we have a birth plan. I know the biggest thing that I want in terms of my birth plan is I want me and my boyfriend to have as much alone time as possible in order for us to be able to take advantage of the oxytocin hormone. Because just from like the research that I've done, women that have their partners and their partners are very engaged in their laboring process, those are the women whose labors go by faster, from what I've noticed. So yeah, I mean, that's the biggest thing for me. Other than that, like, I don't feel like I'm going to be very picky. If there's something that I need, I'm just going to tell Sherry or my boyfriend, like, hey, give me some water. Hey, put this on. Hey, I want to listen to this song. Like, I feel like I'll be able to vocalize that. So I don't know. I just want it to be very like quiet and calm, and me and my boyfriend Brandon to be, engaging with each other as much as possible. So those are the things that we're going to talk about next week. So I'm trying to think. Is there anything else that we had to do in terms of preparation? Nah, that's about it. Having a baby at home, I mean, you do have to prepare a little bit more. Oh, hypnobirthing. So I had done research on something called hypnobirthing, which is what you can do. And you can do this whether you're having a baby at home or in a hospital. But it's essentially you're changing the way that you approach what labor looks like. I don't remember what the hypnobirthing term for labor is or whatever, because I got something bootleg off of the internet because I didn't want to spend a bunch of $100 on hypnobirth techniques. But I found some tracks online that were like $50. But essentially what you're doing is you're changing what labor kind of looks like, and you're like mentally picturing labor as something that is more serene, something more natural, and something that is less drawing attention to it being pain and turning that pain into pressure. So it's basically just like changing your mental state and like preparing you mentally for you to go to transition your baby from inside of you to out of you. And so I listen to a hypnobirthing track maybe like every day. There's hypnobirthing books that you can buy. I found some free stuff on Spotify too. So, I've done that, and that's definitely helped me prepare in terms of like how I want to breathe, picturing the pain as pressure waves instead of contractions, giving me different affirmations to think about during the laboring process. I actually have a wall of affirmations that are up right now. And so hypnobirthing, that's another thing that we've done in order to prepare for the home birth. I think that's I think that's it. So I'm actually really excited. I feel very prepared. I feel very prepared. I feel very supported. I'm really excited about it. You know, the COVID-19 thing going on right now has definitely made me even more happy about my decision to have a baby at home. Because I hear people that are having a baby at the hospital, they're only allowed to have one person with them. So if I was having a baby at the hospital, I would only be able to have my boyfriend with me. I wouldn't be able to have my doula with me. And, you know, when we originally hired Sherry as our doula and we were preparing to have the baby at the hospital, you know, me and her were having discussions about, you know, if we go to the hospital and what happens if this happens and what happens if this happens. Like, Sherry was gonna be like my lawyer. Like, she was gonna be in the nurse's faces, like, this is what she wants, this is her birth plan, you need to follow it to a T. But if I was having a baby at the hospital right now, I wouldn't be able to have that support. I wouldn't be able to have Sherry with me. And who knows what I would agree to or not agree to, especially when you're so vulnerable to be in the middle of laboring. I'm not surprised there's people that, you know, go to the hospital with a plan to have their baby naturally and then they end up having a C-section because they're listening to these nurses who are trying to get them in and out of the hospital. So preparing for it has been a lot of fun, and I'm actually really excited about, you know, going through the birth process and the laboring process, and being able to do it in the comfort of my home and being able to do it with my boyfriend and with my birth team, because my birth team's awesome. They're really good. So if you guys have any questions, then, you know, leave them in the comments of the video. But otherwise, thank you for watching. Bye.